Hello again, word lovers, and a slight diversion this week as we're going to look at words which are in English, but from English, developed within English, but were influenced so much by other languages and grammars that they came to form a species of English within English, which, as it was spread largely by Black Americans, and certainly named by a Black American, is known as Ebonics. Ebone representing black and onics phonics. So it's basically the way black people use language in North America compared with the way white native speakers do. I won't have many words to look at today, as the actual words that are imported via Ebonics are few. Gumbo, for example, the southern states dish, comes from a West African word for okra, which is certainly one of the ingredients. Yam, the sweet potato, the yam, we can date that from the 1580s. Igname comes from Portuguese, so let's say that was the word we got it from. Origname, very similar Spanish, but coming from a West African language, that would be the Hispanic pronunciation of the West African language, possibly Nyami, which means to eat in Fulani, or Anyinam in a language known as Twi. And is it my imagination, or does this onomatopoeia extend all over the world, this yum yum, nyam nyam, for eating? One more word imported from Africa, from Bantu. Mbanza is the name of an instrument. We know it by the name banjo. Ebonics doesn't have a lot of written testimony to it until very recently, so we're relying on other testimonies. Thomas Jefferson mentions the banjar in his letters, for example, but that's how he spells it, banjar, so who knows what exactly the pronunciation was. Some kind of cool, hip words have made their way via Ebonics, words like cool and hip. Most of the etymologies of these words are not recognized. They are simply postulated. To dig, meaning to understand something or to like something. To badmouth somebody is a calque, a direct copy of an expression from the Mandinka language in Africa. And the pejorative word for white, ofe, probably derives from Ibibio, an African language, where afia means light-coloured. That, we can even postulate, may come from a Yoruba language, Ofe. And the interesting thing about this language is that due to the very peculiar demographics, this has spread out into other communities and become the accepted language rather than standard English. One example would be a language called Liberian Settler English, which comes from Ebonics, or the African Vernacular as it's sometimes called, of 16,000 African Americans who went there in the 1800s. So an influx of so many people already speaking a strange form of English just simply makes that form of English the standard. And here I should point out the differences are largely in grammar rather than vocabulary. There's very often a simplification of the native country's language. This happened with the Vikings in England. They simplified a lot of our language. The invading forces. Here it's kind of the other way around. The recently liberated, imported language speakers, forced to adopt English, simplified it to their taste. And this may help you to understand the internet memes, he be like, or she be like, or Obama be like, or Trump be like. Be is very often just the go-to form. I be, you be, he be, she be. Again, this happens in England. You go to certain rural areas and you'll see that. So when you see he be the best, it's not a mistake in Ebonic. It's an intensified equative be. If we were to take a sample sentence, and forgive my accent again, any Americans, I know what homie be doing, would be, I don't know what my friend, my homie, the person from the same home, neighbourhood, hood, be doing is normally doing. So Ebonics haven't made a great contribution in terms of individual words, but they certainly influence the modern grammar, largely via the internet, I think. People respond to memes and imitate this way of speaking. What is Ebonics then? It's not English. Is it a form of English? It's kind of sprung up. Is it Pidgin? Is it Creole? Well, I'm not going to do a video on Pidgin or Creole, so let's just end by drawing attention to these languages, these strange corners of etymology where two languages mix, as in Pidgin. When people say you're speaking Pidgin English, you're supposedly speaking a kind of half and half English with another language. It was originally meaning a business affair, something to talk about, and represented the Chinese pronunciation of business. We copied the bad Chinese pronunciation, and Pidgin now means any. Does it? Is Tex-Mex, for example, the Texan and Mexicano mix of Spanish and English? Is that a Pidgin language? I'm not sure. Creole has a more definite etymology. Creole languages are largely, by definition, are spoken by people who were born in a country but not of the indigenous people of that country. The most obvious example being importation of slaves. And indeed the word reflects this. Criar, maybe euphemistically says to raise or to bring up. Creare being to create, in Latin to make, to beget. All the way back to pi root cur. So we got to pi again, even via Ebonics. Cur, to grow. Crear, to bring forth, to create. Criar, to raise, to bring up. Creole. Ebonics isn't Creole and it isn't Pidgin. It's an interesting little corner of the English language I simply wanted to draw your attention to.